Have you ever heard of Gothic architecture?
Have you ever been to a Gothic church?
Maybe you visited one but you were not able to distinguish if that is Gothic church.
And with that, let us help you to know more about what Gothic architecture is. Let's go!
Gothic architecture. A new architectural style arose throughout Europe during the Middle Ages. This architectural genre, initially called Opus Phrygianum or French work, dominated European tastes, specifically those of the Roman Catholic Church, until the 16th century, when it became known as Gothic. This European architectural type originated in the mid-12th century and remained popular until the 16th century. Gothic architecture emphasizes height and has an intricate and delicate design. Despite its French origins, the Gothic style may be found in churches, cathedrals, and other similar structures throughout Europe and beyond. The Gothic style has become one of the world's most unique architectural styles, both aesthetically ornate and conceptually transcendent. Though it originated in the Middle Ages, the unique genre continues to captivate today, as evidenced by some of Europe's most breathtaking structures. The Romanesque components were adopted and developed by Gothic architecture to create a new form of structure that featured 5 important characteristics: stained glass windows, pointed arches, flying buttresses, ribbed vaults, and highly ornate decoration. In addition to reinterpreting these characteristics, Gothic architecture abandoned one major element of Romanesque architecture: the thick walls, to build taller, more delicate buildings with thinner and lighter walls. Gothic architects used flying buttresses for support. These stone structures enabled builders to build ethereal cathedrals and churches that reached toward the heavens. Over time, Gothic architecture evolved through phases. The High Gothic period, which lasted from 1250 to 1300s, was pioneered by Chartres Cathedral in France. The Roman style, or highly ornate decorations on the exteriors of buildings, marked this period. Over the next few decades, Germany, Spain, and Great Britain all developed variations upon Roman Gothic architecture. The late Gothic period spanned the 15th and 16th centuries. Germany built massively tall churches with vaulted ceilings during this period. During this time, British perpendicular Gothic architecture, recognized by a focus on vertical lines, and French flamboyant style, very elaborate exterior decoration, were both popular. The Goths, a nomadic Germanic clan that battled against Roman power in the late 300s and early 400s, inspired Gothic architecture. Their ascent is commonly thought to have marked the beginning of the medieval period in Europe. From the 5th through the 8th century, the Goths held power following the collapse of the Roman Empire and the creation of the new Holy Roman Empire. Although this group was not well known for its architectural achievements, the term Gothic was applied to the style of cathedrals that appeared nearly 1,000 years later. The style was developed in France as an alternative to the Romanesque style, which featured thick walls at that time when cultural development was accelerating and architects and masonry workers had the opportunity to experiment with more complicated structural features. Politically, this era was distinguished by peaceful and prosperous times, during which buildings were meticulously designed and took up to a century to construct. On July 14, 1140, Abbot Suger, the earliest patron of Gothic architecture, initiated the beginning of Gothic architecture. He popularized the style and ideas of Saint Denis, which swiftly spread throughout the Ile-de-France. It started the process of restoring the choir of the Benedictine Church of Saint Denis. The choir harmoniously integrates the elements and motifs that we today consider to be Gothic.
Classic elements. The Gothic style varies according on location, age, and structure type, but it is typically distinguished by 5 major architectural elements: large stained glass windows, pointed arches, ribbed vaults, flying buttresses, and ornate decoration. Large stained glass windows. Tracery, a decorative type of stone support, and intricate scenes from biblical stories are also common in Gothic stained glass windows. Stained glass windows can be found in many places of worship, but they are most common in Gothic cathedrals. These kaleidoscopic windows, which are often tall and arched lancet windows or round rose windows with meticulously cut colorful glass, are larger than those found in other styles of churches. This enabled them to let more dazzling light. Rose window. A circular window, usually stained glass, with symmetrical tracery at the center. Rose window components include trefoil, quatrefoil, cusp, mullion, and foil. Pointed arches. Archways are a major feature of many religious structures and may be found in most Gothic churches and cathedrals. Rather than the large, rounded arches featured in Romanesque architecture, Gothic architects utilized the tall, thin, pointed arches found in Islamic architecture. This design emphasized each cathedral's height symbolically pointed towards the sky and accommodated vaulting with similar shapes. Ribbed vaults. Gothic architects used ribbed vaulting, a new kind of structural support, to include higher ceilings and taller windows into their designs. Ribbed vaulting includes intersecting barrel vaults, arches that are parallel to one another and support a rounded roof. These crisscross constructions not only have a more decorative look than traditional barrel vaults, but they also provide more support for sky-high buildings. Ribbed vaults types: quadripartile, sexpartile, reticulated, stellar, wooden. Flying buttresses. In addition to these advanced vaulting techniques, Gothic architects use another unique structural support method: flying buttresses. The weight of the heavy roof was distributing to a lower, more solid level by these projecting stone structures. Flying buttresses protected the cathedral's structural strength, allowing architects to preserve the Gothic-style thin walls and large windows. Ornate decoration. The use of intricate decorative features is a last feature of Gothic architecture. These include sculptural moldings, statues of saints and historical figures, pinnacles and spires, gargoyles, and grotesque figures that double as waterspouts. Spires. The octagonal spire is more subtle than the square pyramid spire, but it has a design of law. The square base leaves gaps at the corners. As a result, the brooch spire was introduced with a small hip roof from the corners to the face of the spire. Finial. A small foliated ornament that terminates the peak of a spire or pinnacle. Croquette. A projecting ornament, usually in the form of curved foliage, used to decorate the outer angles of pinnacles, spires, gables, especially in Gothic architecture. Pinnacle. A slender spire, often highly decorated with croqueting, used as a parapet or buttress termination. Gargoyle. A hideous human figure, especially one with an open mouth, that functions as a spout and projects from a gutter to direct rainfall away from a structure.
Spread and influences of Gothic architecture in Europe. The Gothic architectural style is best notable for its use in remarkable cathedrals, abbeys, and churches throughout Europe. It is also used in many castles, palaces, town halls, and universities. Grand, ornate, and spectacular, Gothic architectural buildings represent a progression in technology and building techniques. Here, we take a look at some of Europe's most impressive Gothic structures. First is the St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna, Austria. The St. Stephen's Cathedral is one of Vienna's most recognizable structures in the city's main Roman Catholic Church. The original church was constructed in 1137, but it was destroyed by a massive fire, and only the stone foundations on which it stood survived. Since then, the cathedral has grown and evolved, with a huge section repaired following World War II devastation, and different towers and decorations were added. Reformed Church in Nurbator, Hungary. Nurbator is a town in Hungary's northern Great Plain region. The city is well known for its ecclesiastical and secular architectural history from the 15th and 16th centuries. The most well-known structure is what is today known as the Reformed Church. It is one of Hungary's most beautiful and international Gothic constructions, built between 1488 and 1511. The adjacent late Renaissance-style belfry is the country's largest wooden bell tower. Porvoo Cathedral in Porvoo, Finland. The Evangelical Lutheran Church of Finland owns Porvoo Cathedral. Parts of it date back to the 13th century and were mostly constructed in the 15th century. It was originally a church before becoming a cathedral in 1723. Visby Cathedral in Visby, Sweden. Visby Cathedral was built in Visby, Sweden as a cathedral for German traders. It was founded by a fee collected on every German trader that arrived in Visby. Construction began in the late 12th century and was completed around 1190. Leuven Town Hall in Leuven, Belgium. Leuven Town Hall is a landmark building on Leuven, Belgium main market square. The building is noted for its ornate architecture, built in lace-like detail, and was constructed between 1448 and 1469. The structure is in the Brabantine late Gothic style, which is common in the Low Countries such as Netherlands and Belgium. It was created to compete with the elaborate designs of French Gothic architecture and used natural stone from the region. Lincoln Cathedral in Lincoln, United Kingdom. For 238 years, Lincoln Cathedral was the tallest building in the world and the first structure to hold the title since the Great Pyramid of Giza. It remains England's third biggest cathedral and considered a high point in Gothic architecture due to the showcase of decorative art on display both within and outside the building. Orvieto Cathedral in Umbria, Italy. Orvieto Cathedral is a massive 14th century Roman Catholic cathedral in the Umbrian town of Orvieto. The building's construction took about almost 3 centuries, and as a result, the architecture and style evolved from Romanesque to Gothic as construction progressed. Florence Cathedral in Florence, Italy. Florence Cathedral, also known as the Cathedral di Santa Maria del Fiore, is the city's main church. Construction in the Gothic style began in 1926 and was completed structurally in 1436. The basilica's exterior is covered in marble panels in various shades of green and pink bordered by white, and it has an elaborate 19th century Gothic revival facade designed by Emilio de Fabris. Notre Dame de Paris in Paris, France. Notre Dame Cathedral is generally acknowledged as one of the finest examples of French Gothic architecture, as well as one of the largest, most well-known church buildings in the French Catholic Church. The cathedral, which was finished in 1345, was one of the earliest structures in the world to use a flying buttress. Basilica Saint Denis in France. The Basilica of Saint Denis is a massive medieval abbey church in Saint Denis, a northern Paris suburb. The structure is significant both historically and architecturally because it's the section of a church of cathedral that provides seating for the clergy, and church choir displays the first application of all Gothic architectural elements. Black Church in Transylvania, Romania. The Black Church in Brasov, Romania is the largest and one of the most important houses of worship in the region. It is the country's main Gothic-style monument built by the city's German community. St. Nicholas Church in Ghent, Belgium. St. Nicholas Church is one of the Belgium's oldest and most visible landmarks. Construction began in the early 13th century as a replacement for an earlier Romanesque church, and it was continued in the local Gothic style for the rest of the century. The use of blue-gray stone from the Tournai district, the single great tower, and the slender turrets of the building corners are typical of this style. Gos Abbey in Styria, Austria. Gos Abbey is a former Benedictine nunnery and a cathedral of Gos district in Leoben, Austria. The former abbey is a massive late Gothic structure with an early Romanesque crypt beneath the choir. Remarkable early Gothic frescoes in the chapel of St. Michael in the second style, a traditional style between Romanesque and Gothic, and an imposing roof.
Gothic Revival in the Philippines, Basilica Minor de San Sebastian. The Basilica Minor de San Sebastian or San Sebastian Church is a great representation of Gothic revival and might be considered a historical treasure in Manila. The church stands at the end of Clara M. Recto Street in Quiapo, Manila. It is Asia's first all-steel Gothic church and the world's second. In 1621, Bernardino Castillo, a patron of San Sebastian, donated a lot on which the church was built out of wood. However, the church was destroyed by the fire during the Chinese uprising in 1651 and was rebuilt with bricks. In the 19th century, the restored church was damaged again by fire and earthquake. In the 1880s, Esteban Martinez, parish priest of St. Sebastian Church, approached Spanish architect Genaro Palacio for a church plan that would survive fire and earthquake. Palacio completed his Gothic style church design. The construction was supervised by Belgian engineers, and while no supporting documents exist, historians believe Gustave Eiffel, the French engineer behind the Statue of Liberty and Eiffel Tower, was involved in the church construction. Local artisans completed the church finishing touches. The steel was manufactured in Belgium and the stained glass window came from Germany. There are no gargoyles or flying buttresses, most likely because it is composed of steel which make it lighter and more rigid. As a result, adding these characters become flourishes to the overall design. The church facade features Gothic spires and lancet arches. It may appear less dramatic and extravagant, but its facade, like other Gothic cathedrals, make a strong impression because of the two identical soaring towers. The doors and windows' pointed and towering arches appear to be more acute than the other pointed arches. San Sebastian Church, unlike the other Romanesque churches, has multiple massive windows. The spires of San Sebastian Gothic are pyramidal in shape. The vertical representation of the church, particularly its spire, promotes its connection to heaven, as it does in other Gothic religious buildings. Another notable characteristic of San Sebastian's spire is that it's an open work, which was seen as an outstanding architectural innovation. The open work spire, according to Robert Borg, is a radical but logical extension of the Gothic tendency towards the skeletal structure. Another Gothic feature of the structure is the rose window, also known as the wheel window, which is located over the main door and under the Virgin Mary sculpture. The rose window, which is likewise decorated in stained glass, is possibly dedicated to Virgin Mary because of her title as Mystical Rose. Stained glass accent the long lancet windows. Because the windows are huge, light may pass through. The light also creates amazing effects on the stained glass, which displays biblical stories. Rust and corrosion are visible on the church steel structure due to its age and the sea breeze from Manila Bay. To keep it in a good condition, they must repaint the church with multiple layers of painting every 5 years. Crumple paintings decorate the interior of the chapel. Inside, there are high steel columns and groined vaulting. The nave is significantly shorter than the church height. A choir loft is located above the church entrance at the end of the nave. A pipe organ can be installed in the loft. The altar and pulpito have Gothic characteristics such as spires and retablos. Another rose window behind the altar lights the altar. A dome stretches 12 meters from the floor to its peak over the central nave. There are additional windows and the dome's wall that allows light to pass through.
(11 to 12 CE). France in early Gothic has pointed arch, 4 interior levels, flying buttresses, geometric tracery, 6 per tile vault, Laon Cathedral and Soissons Cathedral. England in early English has lancet window, plate tracery from 1200s to 1800s. France in High Gothic has 4 to only 3 tiers, flying buttress matured, clerestory window changed to 2 windows united by a small rose windows from 6 to 4 reeves, a bay church of San Remy Reims, and Chartres cathedrals from 1275 to 1375. France in Rayonnant height of Gothic architecture has combination of the triforium gallery and clerestory into one large glazed area, radiating character of the rosed window, enlargement of windows, Reims Cathedral and Amiens Cathedral. England in decorated, geometric, curvilinear has tracery development from 1375 to 1525. France in flamboyant has increasing emphasis on decoration, flame-like S-shaped, wall surface reduced to the minimum to allow an almost continuous window expanse, and structural logic was obscured by covering buildings with elaborate tracery. England in perpendicular has refinement and fan vault.
Early Gothic region, France and England, period 12th to mid-13th century. Characteristics: plate tracery, pointed arch, rib vault, flying buttress, 4-story bay, 6-part tile. Plate tracery, one of the earliest types of Gothic tracery. Plate tracery seems to cut through a solid stone wall, creating a robust architectural effect that is usually loosely geometric rather than overly decorative in appearance, far simpler than later forms of tracery. 4-story bay, the earliest type of Gothic bay elevation. Cathedral Basilica of Saint Denis, Paris, the cradle of Gothic style. High Gothic region, Europe, specifically France and England, period 13th to 14th century. Characteristics: 3-story bay, height, bar tracery, and rose window. Height: High Gothic cathedrals were considerably higher, and the ratio of nave width to higher larger. High Gothic decoration, Reims Cathedral, Marnes, France. High Gothic is far more decorated than early Gothic.
Late Gothic and flamboyant region, Europe. Spain, Germany, England, period 14th and 15th century. Characteristic: intense ornamentation, complex vaults, lanterns, oak arch, spatial unity, perpendicular. Intense ornamentation, late Gothic was marked by a concern for surface with thinner, lighter, and more intricate tracery. Complex vaults, terrace-round vaults featured additional ribs emanating from the main supports abut on to the transitive ribs. Oak arch, a pointed arch each side of which is composed of a lower concave curve intersecting a higher convex one, merging in origin but became a features of late Gothic.
Venetian Gothic region, Venice, Italy, period 12th to 15th century. Characteristics: polychromy, arcades and balconies, campanile, ogee arch, brick and stucco, and Byzantine influence. Polychromy, Key characteristic of Venetian Gothic: arcades and balconies. With flooding a yearly occurrence, almost all Venetian palazzi are all built on tall arcades supporting the principal apartments. Brick and stucco. Local red brick is the most common material as it is relatively light and more tolerant of movement. That's all. We hope you learned more about this interesting topic today. Thank you.